Can you tell me some of these exercises, like describe some of these exercises that you do in your classes?
Um, yes. So, I mean, you mentioned yourself post-it notes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's something very like low-level interaction that I use for, maybe to mobilize them a bit. I have to wake them up sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
or I have them to move around. So to say, well, don't tell me by sitting there at your desk. Just write a sticky note, put it on the wall, and then we can discuss it. So in a way, they get moving.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the movement per se is not a response to the question I pose, but at the same time, I think it mobilizes them, and the body becomes part of the process, I think. um, I do lots of design thinking activities, so something that has to do with value walks, and I do that both in research and teaching. uh, I do something that is called value walks. So in this case, they indeed use their bodies, and I pose a question, and I say, well, we'll all stand up. We have the room. One side of the room is the positive side, the other side of the room is the negative side. So I say, for example, how do you feel about X? And they may move to the right side, or to the left side, but they also be in between spaces. So the whole spectrum of the room counts. And of course, in those cases, then you would ask questions. Why are you standing there? Uh, what did make you feel that, well, that's the positive side, but I'm not there. I'm a bit, before the positive. So what made you respond like that? I've used that also as a method with like teenagers
Mm-hmm.
for research purposes, and I always find, but also with adults, from students to senior colleagues, and I always find that they're extremely forthcoming in their responses, more than expected. And I think it's this whole idea of integrating the body in
Mm-hmm.
the process that relaxes them, and I think make them more open and willing to share their thoughts.
Yeah.
um, well, of course, I also use, well, not of course, but depending on the course, I may use things like Legos, for example, or Play-Doh. So again, things that they can use to um, materialize their thoughts. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not only the end result of the Lego, or the plastilene, or the Play-Doh process, but it's also the making of this. So putting something down, thinking together with somebody else in their group, changing this, moving it to a different side, adding one piece, removing one piece. So I think it's this again, this bodily, but also very much sensory collaborative process. Um, um, that benefits participants and researchers. Um, I mean, I also like do things that have to do with drawing. So we're doing things like wireframing, for example,
Mm-hmm.
when we develop, let's say, a website. So sometimes I have them use a software online, but typically what I would say, if we're allowed to be in class, so if there's no COVID, we say, okay, let's do it on paper. Yeah, let's use colors, pencils to draw things together. And I think it's also, this idea of even, picking a marker of a different color to signify particular aspects of that design. I think also these are things that really help you make your ideas more material and more tangible.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I have several of these examples. You let me know where to stop, but I think generally things that mobilize students, have them think actively, use their bodies, their hands, their minds, their senses. Um, I very much try to integrate those. Of course, on the other hand, I have to say that it's not always possible. It's not
Yeah.
always possible because we're also constrained. We're constrained about how certain things are done, what I said earlier, but also we're constrained because, if you know that you have to cover, certain things in an hour, and you have to discuss learning goals because that's what is the expectation. So I think we come back to the kind of the challenges and constraints. If students expect to discuss the learning goals by sitting in, like you arrangement in class, you know that from yourself maybe.
Yeah.
And then, one leads the discussion, one or two people take notes, they discuss, they bounce off on and off some ideas, you have the tutor maybe intervening and so forth. So and you have 45 minutes for that, and you know that you have to discuss this because they have to, something else follows, they have to get an understanding of that because they have to write an essay.
Yeah.
Or so in a way I think it's a chain, but also sometimes a vicious circle, because you may say, well, I want to do something different. But if you do something different, then students will complain that they did not get adequate of that
Yeah.
because there is an essay coming and they will be assessed on that. So I think the system, and I have also shared this thought with other people in the faculty before, we are in such an inflexible system that integrating this kind of more, I wouldn't even call them sensory, like alternative, or um, you know I just got a notion, so I'm in the class, I see that nobody is engaged, and I have to do something. So I may very quickly come up with something which students will engage, but then it's not what you typically do. So I think you can do it, but then, and students may be engaged and they will like it, but the response may be strange or, well, not expected. Like I don't know. That's why I don't very willingly do things impromptu. So do things when, like, decide to change things at the last minute, because I know the students will explain. Sorry, will complain.